Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a late halfway through the month check-in and my first wrap up of January. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books. And today I wanted to check in and have a chat with you about how reading is going so far in January and sort of wrap up the books that I've read so far. As I'm filming this, it's the 20th, so I'm a little bit late for halfway through the month, but I thought I'd go ahead anyway. I've read what seems like quite a lot of books numbers wise, which is 9 books, but actually 2 of those were very short graphic novels and one of them is kind of a picture book, so I'll talk you through them all. And I also thought we could have a quick chat about what I'm currently reading. January got off to a good start and I read a few short books in quick succession. I started off with a library book, which I wanted to read this because it was a book heavily mentioned in Bookworm by Lucy Mangan as one of her childhood favourites, and I'd never heard of it before, and it's called Private Keep Out by Gwen Grant. Now, Lucy Mangan really loved this, which is why I added it to a list of books that I wanted to read or reread from Bookworm. I didn't love this. It was okay, it was fine. It's told by a nameless narrator who gets into all sorts of mischief. It's set just after wartime, so it's quite nice sort of historical children's fiction, but there's a lot more violence in this than I thought, and I thought from what Lucy Mangan had said that it would be very, very funny, but I didn't personally find it that funny. Don't think I actually laughed once. A couple of chapters might have raised a smile, but it was a bit disappointing, so not a fantastic book to start the year with, but I'm glad I read it and it can go back to the library now. Secondly, I read The Talented Mr. Ripley, which I read for AJ Dunn's new book club, the Thriller Month book club, and this was the first read for it. Patricia Highsmith's The Talented Mr. Ripley. This was my first Patricia Highsmith book, and I've been wanting to read her for a very long time because she was on my list of sort of crime authors that I've never tried that are really highly rated. And I loved this. I wasn't at all disappointed. In many ways, it's absolutely better than the film, which I think I've revisited quite recently. Ripley is a really sort of amoral character. I do enjoy a book with a bit of an anti-hero, and Ripley certainly is that. This is all about Tom Ripley, who gets an unexpected offer to go to Europe, which he sees as a chance to start over, basically. And his job that he's basically employed for to go to Europe is to try and get this guy's son to come back to the US, which he completely fails at. So it's a really interesting book, and I read it in only a few days because it's quite short and it's very, very gripping. Once I was in the grip of this, I couldn't put it down. So that was a great read. I then went straight on to one of my rereads of this month, one of my all-time favourite Agatha Christie's, And Then There Were None. I haven't reread this for a very long time, if at all, and I really enjoyed rereading it, although I must say, having reread this and having reread Murder on the Orient Express, I actually think that Murder on the Orient Express will move above this on my list of rereads. As it stood when I made my top 10 Agatha Christie's, this was a close second behind Five Little Pigs. I would now probably put it sort of joint second with Murder on the Orient Express. It's definitely Christie's masterpiece. It's an amazing book, and I look forward to revisiting some of the adaptations as well. And yeah, I'll definitely revisit this one again. I absolutely love this mystery. It's amazing. If you haven't checked out Agatha Christie yet, this is a great place to start, although personally I love Poirot probably even more. Next, I read an ebook of The Walking Dead Volume 2, Miles Behind Us, by Robert Kirkman, Charlie Adlard and Cliff Rathburn. And this is the second in the series of Walking Dead graphic novels. I read the first, which I had on the physical TBR last year, and I promised myself that I could read this one from the library this at the beginning of this year, so I did. I don't know how easy it's going to be to get hold of the next few without actually buying them, so it may be a case of waiting until the TBR's down a bit and buying some more. I'm still really enjoying this series and I definitely want to read on, and it was a good graphic novel. Continuing with graphic novels, I then read the graphic novel version of And Then There Were None. Overall, I did like the artwork in this one. There's some interesting things that the artist was obviously trying to do. Yeah, it was enjoyable. There was no Poirot for me to disagree with the person's drawing of. This one is adapted by Francois Riviere and illustrated by Frank Leclerc, and it was a really enjoyable, very quick read. The next thing I finished this month was Anne of Green Gables, and this is my copy here, although I mainly listened to this on audiobook. In fact, I think I listened to the whole audiobook. The audiobook is available free if you subscribe to Audible. It's in their unlimited library, and I highly recommend the version narrated by Rachel McAdams. It was absolutely fantastic, so much so that at the end of it I quickly checked to see if the next books in the series have been narrated by Rachel McAdams as well, but sadly they haven't. I really would have liked to listen to Rachel McAdams narrate the rest of the series, but as it is, I think I'll be probably investing in some of the paperbacks for the rest of the series, because I'm reading this for the Annealong, which is hosted by Emily at Novell Novels and Gemma at Read a Book Gem. I loved this possibly even more than I loved it last year, and you will have seen it in my top 10 of 2021. The audiobook just even added to it for me, and what really added to it for me was talking to the wonderful Annealong group about this book, and some of the contributions by some of the others just enriched the book for me even more. Yeah, it's an absolutely top book, so it stood up to the reread, even rereading it less than a year after reading it for the first time. I love it. I love the characters of Marilla and Matthew. I think they're amazing. I love the friendship between Anne and Diana. I think that's really well written, and I just love all the descriptions of the nature and everything. Absolutely brilliant book. So I can't wait to read Anne of Avonlea with the Annealong next month. Next I read Treasure Island, and this was my first buddy read of the month, and it was with Jessica, who I'm friends with on Instagram, and I'll link her Instagram in the description down below for you because it's lovely. We read Treasure Island together over the course of about a week, and this was a brilliant book that I think I probably have had it read to me in childhood. Definitely parts of it seemed familiar. I think maybe we read it in middle school, but I'm not sure. So this is about Jim Hawkins, who sets off on a pretty piratey adventure to Treasure Island and what happens there. And I wouldn't like to say any more in case I spoiled the story. It's quite a short one. It's very enjoyable. Jim Hawkins was an absolutely fantastic narrator, and even though he does silly things sometimes, he was treated really well as a narrator, and I thought the author did a great job of narrating this through the eyes of a child, and some of the other characters in this are absolutely brilliant. I enjoyed the character of the Doctor, Long John Silver, absolutely menacing, really well done. This is definitely justifiably a children's classic, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, another book that I really enjoyed was the New York Trilogy by Paul Auster. And this is partly about a writer of detective stories, so perfect for me. And this is actually a series of 3 short books: City of Glass, Ghosts and The Locked Room. And they're all kind of variations on the classic detective story, but very much twisted and made Paul Auster's own. I felt like maybe this was meta because there were crossover between the stories and the characters, and the author was in it himself, or a character with the same name as the author was in it. So I think that might be called self-insertion, I'm not sure. Really strange book, but I do love a strange book, and I really enjoyed reading this. I think I will keep this because I possibly will read this again, or definitely revisit it. It was a book that left me feeling quite confused and like I hadn't understood parts of it, but that I still really enjoyed it. So it's only been a few days since I read this one. I think it still needs a little bit more time to settle into my brain to see if it's going to be one that I think about a lot. But yeah, I really enjoyed the read of this anyway. And the final book that I finished last night. This was my new book that I got for Christmas, and it's also the first book that I've read to go towards my target of reading 12 books that were published either last year or this year. This was published in 2021, and it's The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers and Other Gruesome Tales by Jen Campbell, and this one's illustrated by Adam D'Souza. And I absolutely adore this cover. I've spoken about this cover before, and it's just fantastic. If you like the gruesome versions of fairy tales, or you like stories from a clear storytelling tradition, you will love this. Jen Campbell has retold 14 sort of fairy tales, I suppose, gruesome tales from around the world, and they are absolutely fantastic. And there's a lovely afterword at the end in which Jen Campbell explains the creative decisions that she made with it, a bit about her love of fairy tales and investigating those. And yeah, this is wonderful. I do appreciate that this is aimed at children, but I think some of the stories were quite scary. Personally, one of the ones that I read last night I thought was the scariest, and I thought if I was a child listening to this, I would be scared of that. And that was The Girl with the Horse's Head. That freaked me out quite a bit. There's also one in here where the illustrations by Adam D'Souza just absolutely chilled me. And that was because it was called The Man Who Hunted Children, which was a South African traditional tale. Oh, the illustrations just made me so uneasy because there's at least 2 pictures where the man is sort of lurking in the background. And it's very terrifying. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I do think children enjoy gruesome tales, so I think that older children would enjoy this book. My favourite story was The House That Was Filled with Ghosts, which was a story from Japan. This is a story about a woman who can make the best tea in the land, and it tastes of something different every day. And it's also about a man who wants to marry her but doesn't have permission from her father, and they move into a big house that is haunted. Despite some incidents, which I won't spoil, the woman is very brave and it all works out well for them. That was a wonderful story that will really stick with me. What I really enjoyed about it, because I love the idea of sort of the oral tradition of storytelling, I love that in that one there's like a repetition of events over and over again, as you see in many sort of traditional tales and tales that have been passed down through generations by word of mouth. This repetition that helps you remember and hooks people into it. So I loved the repetition in that one. And Jen Campbell's different word choices really made me smile. So that was my favourite in the collection. But to be honest, all 14 are really good. I would definitely recommend this to adults who like fairy tales. And I will be searching out some retellings of fairy tales and possibly going back to read some sort of Grimm's fairy tales and things which I haven't read before. This could definitely take me down a rabbit hole of wanting to read sort of fairy tale retellings. Brilliant book. Jen Campbell is a booktuber, and I'll link her channel down below. I think I've linked it before, but I will link her playlist about fairy tales, because she has a brilliant series of videos where she talks about the origins of some of the fairy tales. So yeah, highly recommend that, and highly recommend this book. It's definitely my favourite of the month so far in terms of enjoyment level. Yeah, so those are all the books I've finished so far this month, which is great for 20 days. So in terms of what I'm reading now, I've got one audiobook on the go, which is Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens, and I've gone back to that. So I was listening to it in Victober. I listened to it a little bit after Victober, then I had a bit of a break from it, and I've gone back to it. I've got about 15 hours left to go because it was about 35 hours long, and I'm really enjoying it, so I'm hoping to come to the end of that either this month or next. I've also got 3 books on the go that are all for readathons or buddy reads, and what I've got on the go at the moment is the Odyssey by Homer. I'm reading this for the Eclectic Bookclub with Shelly Swearingen and David Wiley. They run the group, and I will link them both in the description down below. I'm so enjoying talking to people about the Odyssey and really enjoying reading it so far. You can see we're quite a way through now, getting towards the end, and really enjoying Odysseus's story. I'm also reading Wolf Hall for the Wolf Hall Readlaong, which is being hosted by Emily at Novell Novels, Marissa at Blatantly Bookish, and Tori from Hufflepuff Discovery. Again, I will link all of those channels in the description down below. If you want to know more about the read along, it's not too late to join in, and there is a Voxer group talking about this one. So far I'm really enjoying Wolf Hall. I tried to read this in 2020 and I just wasn't in the right headspace for it at all. Couldn't get into it. But you can see that the blue bookmark is where I got to the first time, and this bookmark is where I am now. So I've exceeded where I got to before and I'm really enjoying it. A little bit behind where I wanted to be, but this is a group read which is going on in January and February, so there's plenty of time to read it. I'm hoping to sort of get a bit nearer to the halfway point or beyond by the end of January, because in February I'm hoping to judge the BookTube prize, so that will entail a lot of reading, so I'm hoping to get a good start on this before then. Third thing that I'm reading at the moment is a buddy read with Berna at Berna's Bookish Adventures and Loretta at, I think Loretta's got a new channel called Read Write Create. I will link both of those channels in the description down below. We are reading this thriller together, and we're reading this together in the months of January and February as well, so quite a slow pace. But it is Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter. I don't think there's any way I'm going to be able to hold myself back and make this last to the end of February. I just don't. So far I've managed to stay on schedule. It's been really hard. I'm reading my chapters of this every weekend, but it got off to such an explosive start. I really didn't think I would be able to wait out the week, which is why I've read so many other books to distract myself from not going back to this and getting ahead. We're 5 chapters into this and I get to read another 2 chapters at the weekend, so I might sneakily start them tomorrow, or might wait till Saturday, and then I think it's about 2 chapters a week until the end. I'm going to try to hold myself back, but I think this is going to be a hard one to put down as it gets towards the end. So I've got 3 good books on the go. I might be joining in with an impromptu read along that I may or may not have bought a book for, so yeah, more on that in a later video I think, because otherwise this will be way too long. But yeah, that is my wrap up of my month so far in January, and I'm hoping to read a few more books before the end of the month. Thanks for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up, and I hope you'll consider subscribing if you haven't already. Please do leave me a comment down below. What's your favourite thing you've read so far in January, or are you reading anything really great at the moment? And I hope to see you all again soon in another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.